And now to start our meeting, if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to the May 15th Wednesday meeting. Glad you're all here in attendance. It's great to have a full house. We'll go right ahead and get started with the agenda with the approval of regular session minutes from 5/13 this past Monday. Board, I know you've had those minutes in draft and had time to review them and have your comments addressed. Do I have a motion for consideration of approval?
I read them this morning, and yes, I'll make a motion to approve them.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number C. It's my understanding we have some proclamations here this morning. I think we have three. So we'll take them in the order that they are on the agenda. The first proclamation is for a designation of click it or ticket. It's mobilization of Clermont County, Ohio. Who do we have here to accept this resolution this morning? And it's Jennifer Stewart. And I should correct that. It's Jennifer Stewart Hamblin. That's correct. Thank you for coming here this morning. Proclamation for Click It or Ticket, May 20th through June 2nd. Whereas the safety and security of the citizens of Clermont County, Ohio, and the surrounding areas are vitally important. And whereas a large percentage of our citizens regularly drive or ride in motor vehicles on our roadways, whereas the use of seatbelts in passenger vehicles saved an estimated 14,955 lives in 2017. And whereas regular seatbelt use is the single most effective way to reduce fatalities in motor vehicle crashes. Whereas the use of a seatbelt is supported by the laws of Clermont County, Ohio. Whereas May 20th through June 2nd, 2019 has been selected as the National Click It or Ticket Mobilization Enforcement Period. Whereas across this country, law enforcement officers will actively be participating in the mobilization to ensure that all motor vehicle occupants are buckled up day and night to reduce the risk of injury, death caused in traffic crashes. Whereas increased enforcement of seatbelt laws have coupled with publicity has proven to be an effective measure to increase seatbelt use rates and decrease fatal crashes. Now therefore, let it be resolved that we, the Clermont County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim Monday, May 20th to June 2nd, 2019, to be observed as Click It or Ticket mobilization in Clermont County, Ohio, and urge all citizens to always wear their seatbelts when driving or riding on our roadways. And furthermore, that consideration be given to attending the kickoff for the Click It or Ticket mobilization to be planned and conducted by the Clermont County Safe Communities in cooperation with Miami Township Safety Fair, located at Mulberry Square, 1093 State Route 28, Milford, Ohio, starting at 10 a.m. on Saturday, May 18th, 2019. And it's signed by the Board of County Commissioners, David Painter, President, Edwin H. Humphrey, Vice President, and Claire Corcoran, Member. Thank you so much for coming today, and thanks for accepting this resolution for Click It or Ticket.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you supporting us.
And if you have a few words here at the podium, you don't have to. That's fine. That's fine. Before you go, seatbelt usage is something that's near and dear to my heart. Every once in a while, commissioner says something people didn't know. I came out of a meeting one day, working on a job site. Wasn't myself. It's been a long meeting, and on US 28 in 1994, I crossed the double center line, and I hit a gentleman coming home from work head on, right between the headlights. In a 1994 Altima Nissan. Nissans had just come out with airbags at the time and passive restraints, and I got a chance to walk away from that accident. It actually hit so hard that the taillights actually came out into the street, right out of the trunk. And I was on my way to a softball game, trying to get there quick. My mind wasn't on driving. I was all seat belted in, and those airbags and seat belts saved my life. So I know how really important that is. I was just lucky lucky enough that even though I really wasn't thinking about what I was doing and my mind wasn't really on the safety of driving, it was routine enough that when I'd gotten in the car, I'd buckled everything up. So that's a great thing.
Yes, it
Thank
only
you.
takes a couple of seconds.
And I have a story also.
Yes.
Yes, you do.
You do.
Yeah, beyond.
I think
Well-
you just got drunk.
My story started in about 1972 when I became EMS chief of Miamiville Fire and EMS, and we always buckled up, everybody on the department regularly. And then I was in a crash December the 3rd of 2015, had my seatbelt on as I always do, and I believe it saved my life. So
You're absolutely right. Dropping a
Seat
whole
belts
truck
help.
full of concrete on you can't compare to that. You're right. So thank you very much.
Thank you, I
Thank
appreciate it.
You bet.
I'm not gonna tell the whole story.
And to everyone. You are the center today. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another resolution. We have a resolution for Building Safety Week in Clermont County, Ohio, and who I would imagine that Carl would be Carl Lamping. Thanks for being here today, accepting this resolution. Fantastic. Proclamation for Building Safety Week in Clermont County, May 19th through the 25th. Whereas Clermont County is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety, economic value of homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens both in everyday life and in times of natural disasters. And whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of these buildings is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated public servants that are experts in the built environment to implement the adopted codes intended to protect us in these buildings where we live, learn, work, worship, and play. Whereas this proclamation of Building Safety Week 2019 is to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown guardians of public safety, our local code officials who assure us safe and livable buildings that are essential to Americans' prosperity. Whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Week, Americans are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety and economic investment at home and in your community, and to acknowledge the essential services provided to all of us by local building departments and fire prevention bureaus in protecting lives and property. Now therefore, it is hereby proclaimed that May 19th through the 25th, 2019 is Building Safety Week in Clermont County. Accordingly, our citizens are encouraged to join their communities across America to participate in Building Safety Week activities. And it's signed by the Board of Clermont County Commissioners and presented to you, Carl Lamping, the head of our Building Safety Department and Inspection Department. Thank you so much for your commitment to ensuring safe buildings here in Clermont County.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Appreciate it. I'll keep this short, no great stories like that, but I just want to thank the commissioners for this recognition. There's a lot of people that work hard to make sure that the buildings that we all live, work, and play in are kept safe, including fire prevention officials and building inspectors and the like. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Picture in the center?
Yep. Uh-huh. Yep. That's perfect.
So down.
Hope it's not.
No, it's not. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. You bet.
We have to get you some Jimmy Choos.
And we have a proclamation for 50 years of service for Clermont County Senior Services. And I'll bet Cindy's going to accept this one. Is that right? You bet. Whereas 50 years ago in 1969, you weren't there then, were you?
I wasn't there.
Okay.
I was here.
50 years ago in 1969, Clermont County Senior Services was formed by Lois Brown Dale, and is now known as the organization that makes a difference in the lives of older adults through exemplary, consumer-driven services. Service with heart. Whereas the Board of Trustees, staff, and the volunteers of Clermont County Services have consistently built upon the legacy of Mrs. Dale, ensuring outstanding and compassionate service with heart. And whereas Clermont County Senior Services now serves over 6,000 residents of Clermont County over the age of 60 with services that enable them to remain as active and independent as possible. Whereas as a not-for-profit organization, Clermont Senior Services has a half-century history of investing in the lives of the underserved and most vulnerable population in our county. And whereas with community support, Clermont County Senior Services will look towards the future in anticipation of innovative approaches to the continuation of services that have made Clermont County a great place to thrive for older adults. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed that we, the Board of Clermont County Commissioners, hereby proclaim its commendations for 50 years of outstanding service in our community to Clermont County Senior Services, and it's signed by the Board of Clermont County Commissioners. Cindy, thanks for all that Clermont County Senior Services does for the elder adults here in Clermont County.
Thank you
We
so
appreciate
much. I just want to thank the commissioners for recognizing really this amazing milestone. And I was blessed to have worked with Lois Brown Dale, who was an amazing woman, who was a visionary before visionary was even a buzzword. And then also with George Brown, the second executive director, CEO of Clermont Senior Services. And in that 50 years, I'm the third. And we have lots of staff stability in the agency, and they live and they breathe, they embrace who we are, and that is that we provide service with heart. And I thank you, and I thank all of you for the trust you've given us over the years.
And a picture? Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
I think so.
That's it.
That's what I understood.
We're now at item D for presentations. I understand that Mayor Kathy Bailey is here today from the city of Loveland.
I do have letters for each of the commissioners from myself and also from the Mayor's Association. So thank you, commissioners, for allowing me the honor of addressing you today. I'm here to talk about the local government fund. The first handout, the letter from the Mayor's Association. I'm actually here on behalf of not myself, but I'm speaking on behalf of the Clermont County Mayor's Association as well. This letter that we're giving you formalizes the association's objection to the Township Association's proposed distribution of the local government funds. I think it also clears up any misconception that cities and villages were part of that process to create the township's proposal. Never were the villages or cities in your county ever invited to actually participate in any conversations. The first that cities and villages heard was when the Township Association sent the letter announcing that they already had created a formula and inviting, I guess, to the meeting at the Board of Health. I mean, to me, being asked to attend a meeting where evidently months have been spent creating a proposal when it's already finalized, it's not a meaningful effort or meaningful entreaty to be part of a process. And in fact, we were never sent that letter. We only received the letter because Milford forwarded it to us, or the city of Loveland never would have received that. And in fact, the Township Association's own letter to you, I think, confirms that, wherein it says the township representatives worked to create a new formula. So there were no villages or cities that were involved. With regard to their proposal, I've heard that this is not an us versus them, meaning the townships versus the cities and villages, but of course it is. It starts with not being part of the process initially, and it ends with the unbelievably unfair formula that is being advanced by the townships. The end result of that formula is approximately $385,000 every year going from cities and villages to the townships. And of that amount, 53% or $205,000 is going to two townships only, Miami and Union Townships. Every single township gets more money. By comparison, only two municipalities don't lose money, and they gain only between them $6,000, whereas townships are gaining, again, $385,000. The township's letter to you says that this is a more equitable formula. It is based solely on population. I have no idea if that is more equitable or not. It certainly doesn't take into account, for example, what percentage of roads are being maintained by the county, the state, in each of these jurisdictions, what county services such as legal representation, engineering are each of these entities able to use that cities, villages are not, utilities. There's a host of other considerations that could go into figuring out a formula that might be more equitable. What I have heard is that using population is the easy way to figure out the distribution. Obviously, if using population ended with a result where more money went to cities and villages, that is not what would be being proposed by the townships. I also don't much relish the idea of going back to Clermont County residents in Loveland and explaining that, well, the board decided that we're going to go along with this $385,000 take from cities and villages and hand it to townships because that's easy. To me, this is just too important. There's too much at stake to take the easy way out here. Which brings me to the second handout that I provided, which is my letter to you. Again, it's from me, but the Mayor's Association agrees with this approach that I'm suggesting. The alternative approach I'm suggesting is that we all remember that we're all Clermont County here. We are all one community. Neighbors should not be treating neighbors this way. We should be working together. We're asking the board then to be the adults in the room, if you will, and not sign on to the township's proposal and insist that that we provide some better way of resolving this. So I'm asking the board to reject the township's offer or their proposal to extend the current formula then, that's what it would do for 1 year, and to create a committee, insist on the creation of a committee where we would work together towards a fair and equitable formula. Insist that the Township Association provides you 3 names by August 1st, that the Mayor's Association provides you 3 names by August 1st. Those would be the 6 members of a committee that would work together to try to come up with some formula. We'd also ask the Board of County Commissioners appoint someone to act as an advisor, a proctor, a non-voting member, if you will, that could report back to the board on progress, maybe be a resource for some of the information that might help us reach an equitable conclusion here. We ask that the board then insist that this committee come back to the board by March 1st of 2020 with a proposal that a majority of the committee has agreed upon, and that proposal then would be distributed to the various municipalities, villages, and townships. Give us until April 1st for a majority of townships separately and cities and villages separately to agree to the proposal that the committee is putting forward. It can't be a majority of all of us because there are 14 townships, 13 municipalities. We lose every time that way. So a majority of each. If we cannot get our respective entities to agree on a formula, then I would ask that you require each association separately to provide you with their own proposal that they deem equitable by May 1st of next year. And I think the incentive would be to come up with something equitable because we're asking you to adopt it. If you don't like either of them, then the board can do what the board thinks is best. But I'm hoping that a committee would be able to work through this so we wouldn't get to the point of forcing that issue. But maybe then the fallback would be, okay, let's each put forth something that might work. I understand the frustration with the current formula. I agree there are certainly inequities in the current formula. But this is our chance to do it right. It's a chance to force us to work together and insist that we actually try to come up with something together. What is happening now just isn't right. It's causing chaos with some municipalities jumping on Milford's alternate plan just in order to avoid the more draconian township's proposal. It's just, this isn't the way one Clermont County ought to be working together towards a resolution. So I'm asking the board to hit the pause button and insist that we work together as townships and municipalities to come up with something more fair. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions, board?
All right, thank you very much for
Thank
listening.
you.
Thank you. For those that are here, there are a couple presentations, and then there will be an opportunity for public participation. So I just ask you, hang in there for a few minutes here. We move to the next presentation that we have scheduled today. Clermont Senior Services, Cindy, if you are ready.
Me, I don't think.
Is that the one you have?
Yeah,
or do you-
I don't have it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
go ahead.
It be.
Hit B.
B.
Okay.
There you go.
What do you need? This?
Debbie,
Mhm.
do I hit B for every slide to proceed, or can I just hit this? Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. I'm sorry. I can go ahead. Okay, forgive me, I just didn't know if I needed to go ahead or not.
Yeah, you're fine.
As was mentioned earlier, Clermont Senior Services is in fact celebrating 50 years of service in Clermont County. And we've evolved quite a bit over those years. And the reason I'm here, though, right now is really more to reflect upon 2018 and provide a little bit of a summary to you of the services that Clermont Senior Services provides and what exactly we did last year. Clermont Senior Services exists to provide a broad range of in-home services to keep seniors living in their own homes for as long as possible, delaying nursing home placement and saving taxpayers tremendous amount of money. From a Medicaid standpoint, an average is about $3,000 a month. I can tell you, I attended a meeting in Columbus yesterday, and private pay nursing home care now is right about $9,000 a month if you need to private pay. So not only is it very important for taxpayers, from a Medicaid standpoint, but it's also very important from, the individual who has saved all their life to make sure they're being cared for. And yes, they'd rather have it go to their golden years, but if in fact they need that level of care, $9,000 a month is incredible. It really is. So what we do is do whatever we can to keep folks living on their own, in their own homes, with a level of support that allows them to do so. Clermont Senior Services focuses on a bias to serve. We're about serving first. We are about performance excellence. We expect nothing less from our employees than excellence. Being very careful and very responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars and donor dollars. We focus on a continuous assessment of need, being able to look at that individual. Someone comes home from the hospital and needs the additional assistance during that time, but then there comes a time when they're able to do for themselves again. We're not about making people dependent. We're about helping them when they need to be helped, and then if they're able to get back on their feet, then that's what we want to do. We truly are about protecting the health, safety, and well-being of older adults in our community. Who's our typical customer? Well, female, even still. That hasn't really changed. 70% of the people we serve are females. Right around 76 years of age, live alone, and average income is about $1,200 per month. The youngest person we serve is age 60. And the oldest is 105. We've been able to keep her living in her own home, and she still is right now, which is wonderful. This gives you a sense of, by age, the folks that we're serving. 9% are 90 plus, and we can only hope that we are in that situation when we get there. Certainly, 60s, 25.5. And 70s, that's our average. That's 36.5% of the people we serve are in their 70s. And in their 80s, 29% of the folks we serve. Last year,
We heard earlier, we served almost, now we are serving over 6,000 individuals, but we served 5,978 individuals. Well, we have about 49,000 folks in Clermont County who are age 60 and over, which continues to escalate significantly. But 87% of the people we serve receive multiple services. And many as 5 services at a time, because let's face it, if you need Meals on Wheels, good chance you're going to need home care, good chance you're going to need transportation to take you to the doctor or to a dialysis appointment, or even home repair to put safety grab bars in your home. So lots of services that people need, and many times all at the same time. As you can see in terms of revenue, we hit a significant drop in 2008 when over 70% of our budget comes directly from the levy here in Clermont County. And so when real property was revalued, that made a real difference. About $850,000 a year plus other revenue cuts with deregulation and the elimination of tangible personal property tax for businesses was about $1 million that we really had to look at and make some determination as to what we are going to do. We have never sacrificed service. We looked immediately at reprioritizing the services, and we have been able to live within that budget, which is the same levy that was passed almost 20 years ago, and we have not asked for an increase in that levy. Again, 71% of all revenue comes directly from the levy, but what's also important to note is up to 86% that levy impacts of the total budget, because we're able to apply for grants and other things, like ODOT has their 5310 specialized transportation program, allowing us to pay 20% of the cost of a vehicle to replace high maintenance, high mileage vehicles that really are no longer capable of service. And we would not be able to do that if not for the levy dollars. And also what's important, the levy is the payer of last resort. So if someone is eligible for MyCare Ohio, which is the dual waiver, Medicare, Medicaid, or if that person is eligible for just Medicare or Passport, or Medicaid or Passport, or even VA, those sources take care of the cost of care first, and then the levy kicks in. People in our community, the older adults in our community who are eligible to receive, who receive the services, there are no fees for those services. There are suggested donations. And the reason there are suggested donations is because people do want to contribute. And when they contribute, then we're able to leverage those dollars that much further. Our critical needs services are identified as home care as 32.82% of our budget. Transportation represents 18.68%. Our case management staff, that's it's adult protective services, it's home repair. The case managers who are LSWs, MSWs, RNs, and LPNs who go out and assess people in the community to determine eligibility, that's 15.83%. Adult day services, 12.31%. Meals on Wheels, 7.70%, and then lifelong learning, volunteer resources, home repair, congregate. Those are not considered our critical need prioritized services, so they represent a far less percentage of the budget. Home care last year, we served 1,712 individuals. That's up from 1,550 in 2017, and provided 87,900 hours of homemaking, personal care, and respite care. And you can see our funding sources for that program. Levy, Title III, which is the Older Americans Act federal funding, MyCare Ohio, and Passport, and United Way. Here you can see the way the funding breaks down for home care. United Way represented 5.91% of home care, and then it works down. Some funding sources go into certain programs and not into others. The levy paid for 66.39%. This gives you a sense of why that levy and why the trust of the community is so very important to us. Home delivered meals or Meals on Wheels, they're intended to prevent malnutrition and food insecurity. And it's also known to be an underlying cause of chronic illness and hospital admissions for many older adults. Those meals are very, very important, and they have to be eligible to receive them. But you can't just call and say, that sounds good, the menu looks great, I think I'd like those meals, and just because you're age eligible. I mean, there are significant eligibility guidelines in place, and our case management staff adhere to that, so that in fact those who are most in need receive the services. 599, up from 500 in 2017, were served in 2018. That's 74,784 meals that were delivered in 2018. And you can see the funding breakdown here. We do receive some federal and state, which is the Older Americans Act. Passport, levy revenue, 40.65%. And customers, like I said, can make donations, and you can see that represented 7.74%. It is, I think, significant to note, and I'll talk a little bit about it later, but you know, between 70 and 80% of the Meals on Wheels are delivered by volunteers, people who give of their time to go out maybe once a week and deliver the meals in our community. Again, helps us leverage those dollars that much further because they're able and they want to give of their time in order to do that. Adult day services. We have a wonderful adult day center that's located on James E. Sauls Senior Drive. And this is the Lois Brown Dale Adult Day Center. And we have up to 60 people a day that come in there, but we have about 120 customers in any given year. 190, well, really 190 last year, individuals were provided 69,515 hours of service in 2018. As you can see, they do have a really good time. We have lots of volunteers that come in and help there, but we operate according to state regulations for adult daycare centers, and we have a ratio of one staff member for every 6 individuals in the center. The funding sources, as you can see at the top, but one of the things I want to note, and I'll tell you, I heard a lot about this yesterday in Columbus, and it's just, you know, we are living longer, but, you know, not necessarily as well as we would like to live. And one of the things we've really noticed is that those folks who are really what we call level 3 individuals, that these are folks who are incontinent, who need total assistance in eating, toileting, and any kind of transferring, that those have continued to go up. I mean, we used to have 5 to 7 each day folks at that level. Now, in 2017, we had 35, an average of 35, and last year we had an average of 38 people a day. And that's a lot, you know, that's a lot, especially with that ratio, but we are able to cover that. It just puts a lot of change and burden on the staff in doing so. You can see the revenue breakdown, the way that works too. Levy represents 62%, and we're federal and state 20.77. Those are our 2 highest revenue sources. Home repair and modification. Someone needs grab bars at the front door. Someone needs grab bars in their shower. Someone has a floor that's fallen through. Their faucets don't work. Something that that really means that individual needs it repaired in order to live safely and to continue to live at home. That's what home repair and modification does. And eligibility for that, I mean, it is 60 and older, but income, this is where the income is an issue, and it has to be 250% of the federal poverty guidelines So income below 250%. There are also grants that are available, and those grants are available for folks for materials and things like that. So we're, again, able to leverage because we're able to find those funds for materials. There were 277 individuals that were served, and they were provided 2,243 hours of service. The levy and grants, and it's a, as you can see, it's a very small percentage of the levy. $60,000 is what's allocated to that program. There's a breakdown on some of the home repair expenses, and as I mentioned earlier, the average income of those receiving home repairs is under 125%. Case management, I mentioned case management in terms of those folks who go out and they assess the individual and that individual's environment and what services he or she may be eligible to receive. 3,234 individuals were served in 2018, which is up from 2,374 in 2017. And you can see the sources of revenue as well. And here you can see the breakdown. The levy is 93.49%. So that's a very, very large percentage. Lifelong learning centers, we have 3. They're not considered critical needs centers, so they tend to be very self-sustaining. We do have fees for participating at those centers, but they're very, very minimal. And because we have a lot of volunteers who give of their time to do things like Tai Chi and balance classes, because we all know that falls are probably one of the very, very most prominent and costly situations that come from, and the insurance companies say, is costing us lots and lots of money. So other than the fact that none of us really want to fall, that's not a good thing. But there are 3 centers, and we're very grateful because those 3 centers, the Union Township Civic Center and the Miami Township Civic Center, as well as the Clermont East Bethel Center at Bethel Woods, all of them give of their space for us to be able to have centers there. Another reason why we're able to continue this service. In many areas, senior centers really have gone by the wayside. 941 individuals were served in 2018. You can see they do have lots of fun, lots of activities. We still have some traditional senior center activities, but we offer lots and lots of classes. And if you go to our website, www.clermontseniors.com, you will go to Lifelong Learning, and you'll find a catalog of all of the offerings at the 3 centers that are being currently provided. And here you can see a breakdown as well. Our congregate centers, those are on-site centers. Years and years ago, when Clermont Senior Services started, the congregate meal was very important because people needed a place for socialization and activities. They have a lot more choices today. They may not be the wisest choices, but you can get a burger for $1 in a lot of places, and some people opt for that, and choice is okay. But when we're able to serve meals for special kinds of things, then they're getting a well-balanced, nutritious meal. And our specialized medical transportation and other transportation services, other than housing being at the absolute top of senior needs assessment, so is transportation, getting to the doctor, getting to dialysis appointments. And that's one of our absolute top prioritized service. And we provide the services for many veterans in our community because we have the wheelchair lifts and the rear load vehicles that are able to accommodate the scooters and that have the weight of the oxygen and everything on them. So we're able to do that. So we take a lot of veterans to the VA hospital as well as to some of the different treatment centers. And this is the breakdown. The levy does in fact provide 69.51% of the revenue needed for that particular program. One of the things, I mentioned the 5310 program, and we actually have already received notification that we are going to be getting 2 modified minivans, and the scheduling software fees are going to be paid, so that is significant, really significant, in terms of the total cost, and then what the federal share is compared to what we're able to do, what we have to do, and good example of why those tax levy dollars are so very, very important. They allow us to do this. We must have those local dollars. We are under contract with the Clermont County Department of Job and Family Services, and we provide all of the investigative work that's associated with adult protective services. Those are cases of abuse, self-abuse, neglect, self-neglect, and exploitation. And I will tell you, this is an area where it has just exploded in terms of what's happened. In 2008, just kind of giving you a 10-year snapshot, in 2008 we received 124 referrals for investigation. You can see where it went up in 2017 to 287, and in 2018, last year, 448 referrals for investigation. Frankly, most of those are exploitation, financial exploitation cases, which is really very sad. It is a priority service because these are the very most vulnerable of older adults. We also continue to conduct the guardianship investigations and serve guardianships under contract with Clermont County Probate Court. And we served 107 guardianships last year. Volunteer resources, I mentioned earlier, it's incredible what volunteers do and how that helps us to leverage those levy funds and all of our funds even that much further. When 70 to 80% of our volunteers the meals that are being delivered are delivered by volunteers, that's pretty significant if you had to have a paid driver doing those deliveries. We have volunteer shoppers. We now have a brand new program, and it is this volunteer guardian program, which is something we're in dire need of people who are willing to be guardians of person. Not guardians of estate, but guardians of person. And all the individuals who are wards are, at least 60 years of age. The probate court is the one who does the appointments, but, we are doing the support and monitoring for the guardians to make sure everything is going the way it should. And we're very excited. This program just started in the fall of this last year, and it's we don't appoint guardians unless that individual, the individual that is the ward, is in a nursing care facility or in an assisted living facility or another type of facility. So really it's a visiting program, but they report, they're responsible to the court and report to the court too. But we provide a lot of support and assistance with that. I mentioned housing before, and we have 7 communities throughout Clermont County. And these 7 communities are located in Goshen, Williamsburg, New Richmond, Felicity, Summerside, Amelia, and Batavia. And we have 264 units total. And at the end of 2018, there were 431 people on the waiting list for those 264 units. I don't think any of us really like the idea of homeless seniors in our community. And senior housing is just absolutely critical. And so we continue to do what we can. The HUD 202 program that allowed us to build those buildings is just now being refunded, which is great. We're all excited, and we're looking at applying for that next year. So we're very excited about that. But then we're also working with Pearl developers out of Cleveland, and there are 36 units over in Loveland Trails that we partnered on, and then we're seeking approval right now for one that is in the Union Township area. So we're hoping that is able to go through. And these are just pictures I mentioned, we've done a lot of cost savings over the years. In 2008, we had 143 full-time equivalent employees, which was about 163 employees. We are now at 100, and I will tell you that those additional between 96 and 100 are fully reimbursed employees. So they're not levy funded. It's reimbursed, whether it's My Care Ohio or Passport. And that's why we're at 100 at this point. Again, constantly watching everything we're doing and being as efficient and effective as we can possibly be and prioritizing. You have copies of this and it's easy to access, but I won't really go into this, but these are the projections that take us to 2021, which is the end of the current levy cycle, from 2008 actual to 2021. And I mentioned earlier, we are looking at a projected 51,138 individuals age 60 and over in 2020, and from 2010, that's 120% growth. So we'll be at 25% of the, you can see where we fall, 25% of our population is 60 years of age and older. I'm not sure why this isn't progressing. Sorry, it's not moving ahead. There we go. Love technology.
Yeah.
But then you can also see by 2050, 32.7% of Clermont County's population is going to be 60 years of age and older. That, again, the needs are going to continue to rise. And Clermont Senior Services will continue its commitment to be responsible stewards of your dollars and really to seek ways to be the very most that we can possibly be to the older adults in our community. And I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share the work of Clermont Senior Services last year.
Thank you.
Board, any questions for Cindy?
No, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand we have a presentation from Alicia Fine at Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health Services. Morning, Alicia.
Alicia.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Alicia Fine, and I am the Vice President of the Employment and Recovery Services Division for Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health. I'm here to talk with you a little bit about the CASC program. Thank you so much for the opportunity to hit some highlights today and talk with you a little bit about some of our progress and our program success. The handouts are over there if you didn't happen to grab one. There's a report that is a pretty comprehensive overview of the data and the programming and things that we've been doing over the course of the last 5 years. And then there's also a PowerPoint presentation you can follow along if you'd like. So the CASC program is the Clermont County Community Alternative Sentencing Center. This is a program that is a collaborative and very much of a integrated systems program supported by many entities throughout the county, the court system, our probation department, the commissioners, the mental health board. GCB has had the opportunity to be the provider since 2015, and that's when we began the men's program. In 2017, there were some additional dollars that came through the federal government into the state and then into the Clermont County Mental Health Board. And we were able to expand with the support of the county to create a small unit for women as well. So just to kind of hit some highlights about the program. Make sure this is working. Okay. Well, it would be good to advance. Oh, yay. Okay. Just to give you a little bit about the program is designed to provide outpatient treatment services to individuals who are referred through the municipal court system. The idea is that if we can move these individuals into treatment in lieu or instead of sitting in jail, that we can really engage them and link them into treatment to try to move them in a direction of recovery. So all individuals who are in the program are required to have some type of substance use disorder. And so we go through a process to look at referrals to determine what kinds of things that they're struggling with, try to understand their situation to then create a plan for them while they're in our program. The services that we are providing within the confines of the program include substance use disorder treatment services, specifically an intensive outpatient level of care, which is the group counseling. It includes individual counseling. There's a psychoeducational component where we're addressing more very practical skills, like who in your social supports are really good for you and who maybe do we need to think about, like changing how we interact with them, or anger management type things, or dealing with triggers, people, places, and things where maybe we need to rethink about where you're spending your time as you move out of the program. We use a core curriculum called Thinking for a Change, which is an evidence-based practice in our intensive outpatient program. And so that kind of lays the foundation for the cognitive behavioral thinking change we're trying to help individuals move towards and then be more on a path towards recovery. We provide case management services, and that is really around these individuals come to us with very complex needs. So they're not just struggling with addiction or substance use disorder. They have poor supports. They have lots of physical issues. They have some mental health issues. They're really struggling with just their system of supports, unsafe housing at times. And so we're really trying to help, while we have them, think about what we can do to help them support moving out of the program. So as they discharge, we're looking at case management. How can we link you to the right kinds of supports that you'll need around those other barriers? Because it's just not about the substance use. It's about a whole picture. We have addiction medicine in the program, which is a prescriber, a doctor, or an APRN who specializes in addiction medicine, which is able to educate and encourage individuals who are appropriate for a medication-assisted treatment strategy around their treatment. Not everybody is a good candidate for medication-assisted treatment. It is one piece of this big picture. So it on its own is not the solution. So we look at this full and comprehensive picture for medication-assisted treatment. Nursing services go hand in hand with that because individuals, we have to assess their physical, at least lightly assess their physical health and wellness, and we need to be sure that they can handle the medication-assisted treatment regimen. Our nursing services also help to lightly triage other physical issues. So what we find is people come in our program and they've been, actively using, and as that wears off, as they get more involved in treatment, they start to experience physical things that they haven't noticed. Like, I didn't notice that I had pain in my tooth. I didn't notice that I have pain here, there, and everywhere. And so we've found a pretty significant amount of individuals have other, not or emergency type issues, but definitely have care needs. So in coordination with case management and the nursing, we're trying to triage that and get people at least on a plan to try to address those things as they either participate in the program or move on through a discharge process. I think one of the highlights in this area is employment services. So personally, it's very near and dear to my heart. I believe in employment for people. I think it helps you become healthy and an active participant in the community. We value work so much, just as a society, that when we see people who think about working and think about their future and gaining more control over their finances, they feel better. They just feel better. And so we have integrated employment services into the program. Everybody who is in the program receives employment services while they're there, either to help them keep their job that they had prior to coming into the program. We may communicate with the employer, and then sometimes we're helping them design like a resume or prepare for interviewing, practicing how they'll speak about maybe their criminal history or how they'll deal with just some of their spotty work history types of things. Mental health services, I mentioned, we are seeing a lot of individuals, I'm going to get into the data in just a second, who are in need of mental health issues. They have co-occurring needs. So we've been able to provide that as well. Peer recovery support services, which is an individual who has become certified as a peer recovery supporter, but that individual is a person in recovery themselves. And they, that is a special opportunity for those individuals to come and become part of the program, talking to our participants, to really share, I've been where you are, but look what can happen for you if you just stay in and stay on. So we've seen some great success in that area. And then, of course, community support. So part of this is a program where people can stay 5 days or they can stay 90 days. So, and everywhere in between, and I'll tell you a little bit about that data in a minute. And because we get people at these varying time frames, we're rapidly trying to get them into all of these things, but also then connecting to the community. So community supports includes NAAA, Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, all of the things that are out in the community that help people in the community on a natural way achieve and stay in recovery. So we're bringing those folks in, they're volunteering their time, they come in and they facilitate groups for us, talk with our clients, and really help us out there. So this is a sample of our program schedule. I thought I'd just give it to you just show that it's a structured program. The goal is to keep individuals busy. They do stay in the program overnight, so that creates a lot of time and if we aren't busy, we have idle time, and that's never good. So you can kind of see at least an idea of how we're managing and running group efforts. We do have family visitation. We do use that as an opportunity for therapeutic intervention. Families are, usually, at times families can really be a great asset, but then also can really send you spinning into your own emotional triggers. So we do a lot of work around assuring that people have the supports they need as they interface with their families and their supportive individuals. The goal is to create a therapeutic environment. So not just when people are in group or individual sessions, but that the unit is a therapeutic environment for individuals to thrive. Just a little bit about our data and looking at who are we serving. So 95% of our clients are Caucasian. Their average their average age is, for men is about 35 years old, for women is about 34 years old. But I thought it was interesting when I looked at the data that 66% of men are younger than 40 and 83% of women are younger than 40. So it just gives you an idea of where we're kind of clustered. Educational level, men, 75% of them have a high school education or higher. with 25% of those folks having college education or college curriculum or a degree of some kind. So definitely have an educational component. Individuals are coming to us with having education and great potential. Women, 76% of those individuals have a high school education or higher. And then 40% of the women have college educations, degrees, curriculum of some kind. So again, if we can, there's a lot of hope here, really. If we can help to channel efforts and really help individuals imagine their future, they have great potential. They come to us with great potential. Okay. So as I mentioned, everyone in the program is required to have some sort of substance use diagnosis because the core effort is around dealing with addiction and recovery. And in this picture, you can see this is the total program over the 5 years for the men. When we look at who we've been serving, about 52% of those individuals have a primary diagnosis of alcohol use disorder. And then 36% of those individuals have a opioid use disorder. So I just want to frame this. This is just their primary diagnosis. So if we were going to dig into their history of drug use, you would probably see a very extensive history of all types of drug use. But when we get into the diagnostic process, this is how that starts to play itself out. For women, what we see here is 54% of women have a primary diagnosis of opioid use disorder, and then 36% have a primary diagnosis of alcohol use disorder. Again, we're going to see various types of use if we were going to really dig into their histories, but this is where the primary diagnostic picture looks like for those individuals. The funding that was provided for the women's program required that women either had an opioid use disorder as a primary diagnosis or they had history. So I would say you could couple that together and say, 90% of the people have some sort of opioid use in either as a diagnosis or as a significant history in order to be in this program. Because the goal of that funding was to address opioid use and the opioid crisis, as well as expand medication-assisted treatment, which is a key intervention for opioid use. So the other thing I was sharing, people have pretty complex needs. We are seeing individuals with significant co-occurring mental health disorders that are diagnostically relevant. And so 17% of the men who were admitted to the program had co-occurring mental health issues. And then 29% of those individuals, the primary issue was post-traumatic stress disorder. We saw anxiety, we saw attention deficit disorders as well, but post-traumatic stress, which just tells you a little bit about the trauma involved in this population. 44% of the women who were admitted to the program overall had also had a co-occurring mental health issues. 45% of those individuals are experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, and then 23% had an anxiety disorder. So again, lots of trauma, a lot of fear, a lot of triggers. So when you're dealing with substance use and post-traumatic stress, and those are just very intense populations of people. So overall program statistics. So I decided today, I'm really speaking about 2018, but I thought I'd give you kind of a full overview just to kind of anchor us to the overall picture of the program. This data is presented on a calendar year. The data, just to kind of anchor us to a consistent time frame. So we can say this was a calendar year instead of sort of fiscal years, and everybody has different things. So what you can see here is in the entire program, men, women, and over the course of all of the years, we've had 1,272 referrals from the system. 791 of those individuals were admitted. And then you can kind of see the breakdown for 2018. We had 375 referrals from the court system, and then 235 were admitted. I'm going to get into a little bit about what impacts admissions in the next slide, so I'll explain that in a second. the length of stay. So as I mentioned, people can stay in the program from 5 days to 90 days. That's really determined by the judge and how they determine their sentence to the program. So, but what we did find is 54% of men and 51% of women are really staying about 30 days or less. So when we think about that in a treatment perspective, that's kind of a relatively short-term, intensive opportunity. And that is going to impact what we do as we try to link people into the community systems for ongoing care. Part of the goal is to just get them engaged, to get them to a place where they will at least see the opportunity for treatment and the benefits of the program. When we look at admissions and the differences between the referrals and then the admissions, there are some trends that we see. Sometimes referrals are withdrawn. Sometimes the court system refers individuals. We do an assessment. We accept them into the program, but then somewhere in the process there's a decision made that they are not going to be sent to the program but through the court system, and so those are withdrawn. We count all of those as referrals because it's important. But so sometimes there's some changes in there. About 21 to 24% of the referrals were withdrawn of those that were not admitted. And then individuals, this is a voluntary program. They have an opportunity to either participate or not. If they don't participate, I think that goes down another path for the court system and how that is handled. They go to jail most likely. But they do have a right to decline participation. So these are individuals who we accepted into the program, but they decided, no, not for me. And here's what we heard about that. People just aren't ready. They're just not ready to commit to the treatment. There's a fair amount of structure to the program. We are talking about things that people have a hard time talking about. Sometimes they just don't want to deal with the trauma. They're not in a place to deal with their trauma. So we see that people just aren't ready to commit to the treatment process. There were some miscommunications around the program that we've discovered over doing some continuous improvement and trying to understand, like, why are people not coming? Because we want them to come. We believe in this effort, and I think the system believes in the effort. So we did find that there was some confusion around what the program was trying to do, how we operate, some concerns about not having as much flexibility at times compared to the jail system. Things that are easily dealt with if we can get to that understanding. And so we're working on some new initiatives around communication, communication tools. We're doing some in-reach in the jail system with existing programs so that people have the right information. We want them to make good informed decisions. We want everyone to come to the program. So we don't want any misunderstandings out there. So we're working with probation and the jail to try to assure that as people make decisions, they're making them with the right information. At times we do deny referrals. One of the categories of denial is medical complications. So these are individuals who have a significant medical issue, which most of the time require daily intervention, care, maintenance, something like that. We're not staffed in a way to support this level of physical care. There are times when we deny individuals because they have too many medical issues. What I will share with you is, as we look over time in the program, this particular topic has evolved. We have taken a more active stance in reaching out to people's primary care providers, who's caring for you, what are the strategies, do we really understand it? We don't make any decisions without getting collateral data. We're getting releases of information to talk to primary physicians and other individuals who can help us understand what is really needed. And what we found is when we do that, we can oftentimes get to a place where that individual can be accepted into the program and and we can move on. So we're very happy about that. We've seen a decline in people being denied in the medical complicated category. And then other issues, sometimes individuals have significant histories that we're just not accepting those individuals with arson or sexual offenses. It is a program where people spend the night. We are a treatment program, not a jail, so we have the way our staffing is, it works. We would not accept those individuals. The only thing else that I thought would be noteworthy is in the women's program, because there's some restrictions around who can be in that program. You either had to have an opioid use disorder or a history of opioid use disorder and be willing to consider or talk about medication-assisted treatment. That's how that funding came to the system. And so we had about 8% of referrals were denied because they didn't quite meet that criteria. So that's just another consideration. Program highlights. This is an innovative program. It leads in the state. I mean, I cannot say that strongly enough. When we are in Columbus, where we are connecting to other entities across the state, Clermont County's innovation around this program, around the partnership, the stakeholders, the system design is unique. I don't know how else to say that. I think people come to the table in this county. People look face to face. We talk about things. We work together. We're all really trying to get to do the best for the client and our citizens, and that just comes out across the state. So we have interest from the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Recovery Services. They are interested in what are you doing and how are you doing this, and how would we replicate this in other areas of the state? Oftentimes it comes down to do you have the right people at the table? And if you don't, that's probably going to be a significant issue for you in bringing this online. So I can't say it enough. We continue to have visits and people coming to talk with us and talk with the stakeholder system around what are we doing, how do we do this, and can we do it somewhere else? People successfully complete the program. So about 89 to 90% of our clients who come into the program stay in the program the time that they were expected to stay. So we consider that successful completion. We believe that there is a cost savings to the system. Our average daily rate in 2018 was $60.89 per day, which I believe is a cost savings to the system. In 2019, so far, just in our census and the way we've been very busy lately, our daily rate is $56.05. So again, that fluctuates depending upon our census. So people are constantly coming in and they're constantly being discharged based on their time frames. So there's a constant flow. Our goal is to keep us at full capacity. And when we do that, that number keeps coming down. Very quickly, a couple of other things I wanted to let you know about. Our goal at discharge is to link individuals because we really only have a short time with them unless you're there 90 days, and then I feel like we kind of really get our hands on you, and we really can maybe impact. But when we have them in shorter lengths of stay, which is what we're seeing, linkage to outpatient treatment is critical and absolutely necessary. So we link everybody as much as they'll be willing to let us link them. There are individuals who are served in this program who are not Clermont County residents. So sometimes we are linking back to their county of residence. There are times when we're linking individuals to there are various programs out there right now that are providing outpatient treatment services. So we track the individuals who are connected to our organization, which is Clermont Recovery Center. And what I can tell you about those individuals is when we connect them, 65% of them connect to the program within 30 days of their discharge. And then of those individuals, 85% are still participating at 90 days. So, when you think about that, that's great impact, For women, we see about 70% of those individuals referred are connected within 30 days, and then 76 of those are still participating in treatment at 90 days. And then we kind of tried to take a look at like who's still in our program. So, ongoing treatment. So we looked at the data of people who participated in CASC in 2018 to 19, March of 19. And 109 of the clients who were participating in programming in CASC were still involved in our Clermont Recovery Center services as of March of 19 when I looked at the data. So people are staying, people are linking, people are connecting, and people are working towards recovery, which I think is just the crux of what we're trying to do. Access to medication-assisted treatment, that has increased because we're now doing that on site and at in the program, and that was really, again, kind of an expansion that happened in 2017. We continue to connect individuals who are on medication-assisted treatment to either a provider of their choice or into the Clermont Recovery Center treatment program. 83% of men and 79% of women who were on medication-assisted treatment participated, and they seamlessly moved right into our support services at Clermont Recovery Center. I mentioned how important employment really is. What we find, so people, while they're in the program, get this preparation, readiness kind of effort. We try to help them keep the job they already had by calling their employer and helping them maybe provide an accommodation so they're only here for 15 days. Can you hold their job? That kind of thing. Individuals who don't have employment, we help them prepare, but then we do a very smooth and warm handoff to an employment specialist who works with them to find employment when they're discharged. And so 72% of the individuals who were interested in looking for employment, because people can not do that, they can choose not to do that, they did in fact gain employment. They're working 39 hours per week. Their wages are ranging from $8.50 to $23 an hour, and their average wage is $13 per hour. We're pretty happy about that. The kinds of jobs and the kind of employment, what we're seeing a lot of is the construction industries, which, we have to be conscientious around that industry because it can also be a trigger. So we take great care when people move into that industry to provide the right amount of supports to them. But a lot of these folks have great skills. Some of them are skilled tradesmen. And so we see them in construction industries, technology, technician type work, sales, and some food services. Recidivism, I want to kind of talk with you a little bit about that. So I need to give a big shout out to the probation department for helping us to ascertain to the degree we can the concepts around recidivism. The team over there in the probation department, this is their data. They were deeply involved in trying to manually extract this data out of the system and then compare it to our program data. What we found, so the definition of recidivism for this purpose is a look at individuals who successfully completed the program, and then looking at their pre-program charges and their post-program charges at 1 year, so 1 year on either end. So what we found is 85% of the people who successfully completed the program did not reoffend at the 1 year post-program date. 86% of women had not reoffended, and 85% of men had not reoffended. When we look at the recidivism data from the previous report last year, that was at 19%. So 19% of people in 17. I just realized I have a typo there. Let's just say in the report of 2018, the recidivism data showed 19% of individuals did in fact reoffend. But then for this report, we saw that drop to 14, which should be 5. So we see a little bit of a decrease there. I think it's important to realize that when we look at recidivism and we look at individuals in the program, sometimes we see them for 5 days, sometimes we see them for 10, sometimes we see them for 30. So we have the ability to impact recidivism certainly is something we want to continue to look at, but varies based on how much time we have with someone. So it would be interesting to see more about that in the future. Some new things we're doing, program initiatives. So we've learned a lot. We continue to have a continuous improvement effort. You know, we should always be looking at stakeholder feedback, client feedback, and we have been doing that, especially since I've had the benefit of and privilege of being a part of the program. We're looking at just continuously tweaking and adjusting our services. So one of the things most recently that we've done is we've had mental health services linked into the program, but we haven't had them on site until just recently. So we have coordinated with our Batavia office to have a psychiatrist to come into the program on site and address individuals who really do need psychiatric supports for mental health issues. We continue to hear this women experience a lot of trauma, and they will talk about that when they come into the program. So we've realized that trauma-informed care, which is not a new concept, but is very important, and so we want that to become part of the program. So we have some specialist counselors who are trained in trauma-informed care coming into the program one-on-one to meet with clients who need that level of mental health intervention. So that's something new we've been doing. We have increased, because there's so many complicated needs, we've increased our coordination through case management to provide more coordination with primary care, physical care, dental care, to try to help people like get out of the gate on taking care of their bodies. They must take care of their bodies, and we want to support them in doing that. So we try to get that started while they're in the program if we have the time. Communication tools to highlight the program benefits. This is the reference to what is the narrative out there? What are people saying about the program? What are are we talking to everybody who needs to understand the program? Are there ways to be sure that good information is out there so people see the benefits of the program? Schedule and staff consistency, that's always a thing that you want to achieve, and be sure that there's a consistent when people live together for any period of time and don't have a lot of independent choices about what they're doing, we need to keep them on a schedule. And so how does that schedule flow? We're evaluating the flow of the schedule. We're evaluating how we assign cases so that staff can build deep relationships whenever possible. And so we're looking at some of that over the course of we've been doing that and then going forward. And then improved targeting for shorter stay. So realizing when we look at the data, we can see the 30 days or less. We got to get going. We got to make sure we're connecting. We have to make sure that people are getting rapid services wrapped around them right out of the gate. So we're looking at improving targeted efforts around the shorter stay clients. 50% of our clients, 50 to 54%, are what I consider shorter stay, 30 days or less. So we're working on what does that look like? How do you do that in an intensive outpatient way? And then how do you do that when you have a therapeutic milieu where some people are there 90 days? So there's some dynamics there to think about. And then we had some client feedback through a survey. We get feedback from our stakeholders through some of their connections with clients around what they would like. Some of those feedback it was around scheduling and some consistency, targeted programming, and then interestingly, they had ideas about groups that we weren't doing. So they had an interest in more mental health group, like mental health management. I'm like, so we are looking at how to bring some educational and therapeutic groups into the unit so that people get some of those needs based on their feedback. So that's kind of our program in a nutshell for today. I just want to say, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I appreciate GCB and our Clermont Recovery Center team. We're pretty fully invested in this. I think that what we find is we're holding hope for people, and sometimes they don't really want our hope, but we're trying to get them to, I think, connect and really be part of that hope, and that this system is doing that for this group of people. I have one story to share with you about a client who was in the CAST program. He happened to be a 30-day person. he had significant issues with alcohol use and all sorts of other types of use, including opioid use. He was linked and discharged after his 30 days to the Clermont Recovery Center outpatient programming for recovery management. So that's a group also. It's not intensive outpatient, but it's the continuation of recovery in a very intentional way. He was homeless at the time. He was kind of couch surfing. He did not have a safe place to go. He had some issues with the legal system in both Butler County and Clermont County that were still looming over his head. He was referred to our Merwin Recovery House, which is a recovery house that we've established in Pierce Township that supports individuals who are in recovery, who live together in community, who then support each other through recovery, and they can stay. That's permanent housing. So he was able to move into our recovery house. He lived there for almost a year, I would say. He got a job. He started out in a temporary position and then moved up, got a permanent position as an electrician with an electrical company. He really linked well with the treatment system, but then he also, I think, again, a key is this peer recovery supports. So one of our recovery coaches who has lived that life and is now in recovery was linked to him and is linked to all of our men who live in that house. And that was a very important, I think, supportive environment for him. So he has worked through his situations with the court systems in both counties. That's been resolved. He's been challenged, I think, because it's tough. It's a tough process. And so with the support of the men at the house, he was able to continue to stay in recovery. He's very involved in community-based groups. He probably goes to 5 meetings a week while working full-time. And then he just recently moved into his own place successfully, and he's doing extremely well. And he's really one of those people that, like, I think when he looks back at his situation and there are all these pieces of things throughout the process that really have provided him what he needed at the time. And so so he's a great example of kind of the full continuum, and now he's on his own. He's working full time. He's doing great. I think he's in a very positive relationship, and things are going well. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I had a question.
Yes.
So you talk about outpatient, but this is an inpatient sort of situation, isn't it? Tell me the difference and...
So it feels like an inpatient program because of how it's designed in terms that people stay there. It's like a
Right.
residential
Yep.
treatment program. But in the legal process and in the rule and the law around CASC, it's not considered an inpatient program. It's
Okay.
really considered outpatient. And people have, which is why they have the kind of the opportunity
So
to,
they
can
can't
leave.
leave if they choose
They
to.
could
That's-
technically leave
Yep,
if
yep.
they chose to. And when that happens, we always try to therapeutically intervene. Like, why are you leaving? Like, what's happening for you right now? I know it's getting stressful.
Yep.
I know you're being pushed, but let's make this happen. So, and then sometimes that just doesn't work, and we have to let them come back, move on, whatever.
Okay.
But yes.
You also talked about 30 days or less. Isn't that generally 30 days? There's not a lot of less than 30 days.
Actually, in the big report, there's more than I would have anticipated, to be very honest with you. And again, I'm a little bit fresh to the program, so I was looking at all of the data to try to really understand it.
Okay.
And I was probably a little surprised at how much more people there are really with shorter stays.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it's OVI.
Yes, it really is. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very
Any other
much.
questions?
Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Any other presentations, Sean?
No, sir.
We'll move right on to item E, public participation. We've reached the public participation section of the agenda. During this time, the board doesn't answer questions or engage in debate. Commissioners are not expected to comment on matters brought to the board during this time. Each speaker has only one opportunity to speak and shall be recognized by the board president before speaking. In accordance with the board's rules of procedures, your comments are limited to 5 minutes. Anyone here who's from the public is more than welcome to participate. We welcome your participation, and if you would like to participate, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon. Move to the podium for that section, give your name and your address, and the podium is yours. Anyone who'd like to participate? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Andy Dickerson. I live at 5440 South Milford Road in Milford. I was here Monday speaking with you all about a resolution of support for a Clean Ohio grant. So I wanted to come back and report a couple updates to you. One thing, I wanted to thank Jim Meyer for being here. He's our new president of our board, starting this month, so thanks for coming in support. I forgot to mention Monday that Cardinal, when we were formed out of, 3 organizations coming together, but it was really based on the agenda for the future, and more specifically goal number 9 that states there are more preserved and protected natural areas in Clermont County that can be enjoyed by current and future generations. And also a goal 10 for the quality of life of Clermont County residents being enhanced. So after I left the meeting Monday, I was able to meet with UC Clermont, and one of the things that they're excited about is including more nature preserves, just like the one we're applying for, in getting students engaged in science and making sure that they're employable when they graduate. So not just knowing what to do on Monday, but where to work on Monday after graduation. Monday night was busy, so we were able to get to the Ohio Township trustee meeting and got a resolution of support from the local township, and thanks Mr. Henson for participating in that meeting. In Tuesday it was, I guess it's Clermont County Week, because we were at the Batavia Rotary and speaking with YMCA about participating in some of our nature preserve programs. So really, I just wanted to reiterate, we could really use a resolution and support. It's not really of the project, it's for our application to the grant program. And, that resolution will enable money that could be dispersed across 4 counties to stay right here in Clermont County. And by the way, they're less than 1% of funds away from funding all the projects that presented. So it would enable also the use of the state approved and appropriated funds. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Any other public participation? Go right ahead. Thanks for coming today.
Marie Drew, I'm the fiscal officer for Monroe Township. I live at 2014 Claremontville Laurel Road, New Richmond, Ohio, 45157. And I appreciate the opportunity to address you again regarding local government funds. I'm sorry Kathy had to leave. I had really hoped that she would be able to be here for this. First, I want to widen the lens here. I think we're all really involved in what's happened this year. I think we can all agree that we've agreed that the distribution is unfair and that it's been going on for quite a long time. To put some perspective on that, an entity that received $100,000 a year for the past 25 years over and above what they should have gotten has basically gotten a gift, mostly from the townships, of $2.5 million for their entity to use for growth, development, whatever they're allowed to pay for out of that fund. So I find it very difficult to listen to somebody say we're not thinking about the total county, because that money stayed in the county and it was able to be used by those entities to do wonderful things. Another thing I'd like to bring to your attention is again, this percentage. 21% of my budget is local government fund. I looked up Loveland's, $160,000 of their $7+ million budget. So it's about 2.225%. That's statistical variation on a $7 million budget. So again, I think you really have to take into account the size of the entity and the budget that you're talking about when you think about the money involved here. The townships feel that they've tried to have this addressed in the past, and that those efforts have come to no fruition. When you're in a relationship and communication's completely broken down, sometimes the mature thing to do is to stand up for yourself and leave the room. And that's basically what the townships did. We did not feel like we were able to get anywhere in the processes that have been put in place in the past. And so we did that, but we feel that we did that in a mature and fair way. We didn't ask for reparations. We didn't ask for interest on the money that was borrowed from us. We said, fine, we own that we didn't come back to the table before this and demand our fair share. But we're asking very respectfully, but firmly, for you to take a stand at this point and say enough's enough. Another year just kicks it down the road. People who are getting more than their fair share are going to continue to get more than their fair share for that year. What we've proposed may not be perfect, but it's certainly better than what we have. And there's always more opportunities in the future for people to come back and address it, whether it be on a 3-year timetable or a 1-year timetable. So I respectfully request for Monroe Township, at least, that you give serious consideration to putting a stop to continuing to kick this down the road, and let us get something in place that's at least better. And then if people want to go off at that point and work further on it, there's nothing stopping anybody from doing that. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else that'd like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close this portion of the meeting to public participation. Thank you to those who participated. I'll move to item F, the consent agenda. Board, a consent agenda has been prepared for you. I know you've had it since Friday to review it. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda for further consideration or discussion?
None for me.
None? Then I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda as prepared.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
It's been moved and second. Roll call, Judy?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. Before we move to item G, I would ask is the board's pleasure if they'd like to recess for 10 minutes?
Fine.
You'd like to?
Yes, please.
Okay. Ed?
Yep.
Okay. Then we will stand in recess prior to considering the non-consent agenda. Do I have a motion to recess?
Sure. Motion made.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and second. We roll call, Judy?
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes, we stand in recess. We are back at 11:50, 10 minutes for that recess, and I would like to call this meeting from recess back into regular session. We are at item G on our agenda today, the non-consent agenda. And the non-consent agenda starts
Page 7.
page 7 with item number 10. Item 10 is a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners adopt resolution 079-19 resolving to approve payment to the vendors in the amount of $2,245,805.63 as set forth in the BCC approval invoice report for checks dated May 15th, 2019, and the BCC directed prepaid invoices presented by the Clermont County Auditor on the 13th day of May 2019, and further authorizing the county auditor to issue warrants for same pursuant to section 319.16 of the Ohio Revised Code. Do I have a motion for approval of item 10 as read?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, Judy?
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. Item number 11. Morning.
What a trooper. He waited all that
He
time.
did.
Yeah,
He's been there the whole time.
Item 11, recommendation of Patrick J. Munger, County Engineer, with concurrence of Thomas J. Agel, County Administrator, to execute record plat number 6293139 for the replats of lots in the following subdivision in Tate Township. This is Miller Estates subdivision, replat of lot 1 and 2, and we're going to create new lot number 1A.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 11. Just now, do I have a motion for consideration for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mr. Painter.
Yes, item number 12.
Item 12 is recommendation of Patrick J. Munger with the concurrence of Thomas J. Eigel, County Administrator, to execute record plat number 6293140 for the replats of lots in the following subdivision located in Goshen Township. And this is a replat of Lot 29B and Lot 30 in the town of Goshen, and to create new lots 30A and 30B.
Subdivision.
The town of Goshen subdivision, that is correct.
Yes.
That's how the record reads from
does.
18XX date.
03.
Yeah.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 12 for the Town of Goshen subdivision, the replot lot numbers 29B and 30 in Goshen Township. Do I have a motion for consideration of approval?
I make a motion for approval.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 13.
On late last week, I received a letter dated May 8th from Commissioner Claire B. Corcoran, addressed to Thomas Risk, who resides at 6953 Shiloh Road, Goshen, Ohio 45122, designating him as her alternate to the Clermont County Planning Commission pursuant to and in compliance with Section 713.22A of the Ohio Revised Code. This appointment is subsequent to the untimely death of Richard Hoffman, who was appointed earlier this year for and on her behalf. So I'd like to let the record show within the board's journalization that this has been accomplished. No, it'll just say let the record show.
Okay.
Okay. So, Board, you've heard the reading of item number 13. Do I have a motion for approval?
Actually, a motion isn't required, but a designation of let the record show that this was accomplished pursuant to and in compliance with 713.22A of the Ohio Revised Code.
Thanks, Judy. For
You're
that.
welcome.
And in a comment to do that, this board thanks Richard Hoffman.
Yes.
Very much so.
All right, we will move on to item number 14. Item number 14, Board, is a recommendation that the Board of Clermont County Commissioners of Clermont County, Ohio, adopt resolution number 080-19, resolving to, first, to applaud and sincerely thank Governor Mike DeWine for listening to the county budgetary concerns and addressing indigent defense costs with his historic and impactful investment, including in his introduced budget. And second, to express our deep appreciation and sincere thanks to the Ohio House of Representatives for further increasing the indigent defense appropriation by $35 million in state fiscal year 21, which would fully reimburse counties for their indigent defense costs, assuming that current conditions. And three, that we, the Board of Clermont County Commissioners, calls upon the Ohio Senate to maintain the Ohio House of Representatives appropriation for indigent defense reimbursement in the state budgetary bill to ensure that this state mandate remains funded. Board, you've heard the reading of item number 14. Do I have a motion for approval?
I will make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. And just to go back just for a second to that, I know I called for conversation, but Mary, am I reading correctly that the cost for indigent defense here in Clermont County was somewhere around $1.4 million? Is that correct? And that was in 2018? And in 2018, just to let you know, when it comes to state reimbursement for indigent defense, I think the state's commitment at that point was around 50% is what they talked about. But the actual, I think it went all the way down to 41. But our record showed that the state reimbursement was about,
Is it 42?
In 2018, the year end reimbursement rate was 42.6%.
42.6%.
Right. The-
So their reimbursement to us was about 406,000, 407,000?
They, do you mind if I come up here a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In 2018, the public defender's cost for indigent defense was $1.6 million.
Okay.
In addition to that, the courts had another assigned counsel where they have appointed counsel. So the total general fund indigent defense in 2018 was just over $2 million.
$2 million, okay.
Okay. You add that, the indirect cost allocation, which the public defender can turn in when they get their reimbursements. So you're almost up to 2.1 million, and the state reimbursements were just under $888,000.
Okay.
So that brings it to 42.6. So the net cost that the county general fund put in to indigent defense is just about $1.2 million last year.
1.2 million.
Mhm. So the average of the last 5 years is about 1.1 million, and the average state reimbursement of that total $2 million expenses was about 43%.
Okay.
For 5 years, which is better than the 10-year average, which was only 39%. So we have seen an increase.
It was supposed to be 50 from the
It
beginning.
was supposed to be 50. The state allows it to be 50, provided the funding is available at the state level.
And with this House bill that the Ohio House has proposed, that would, by year 21, would be they would reimburse 100% if the
Right.
Senate holds true.
Right, with no other changes to the costs involved. So if our expenses go up, for example, with the proposed increase in assigned council rates, that's going to push our costs up somewhat. Could be up to about $150,000 a year increase to the general fund. So depending on what their funding actually is, will it be 100%? Anything's going to be good.
And I believe in the budget bill, there also was a clause to establish a committee to look at indigent defense from the state's point of view to see if it can be improved and reformulated in some way.
Okay. Any other conversations on indigent defense? Mary, while you're here, item number 15.
Item number 15 is a request to increase the annual appropriations and authorize the auditor to post it to the ledger. The first is $30,000 to real estate assessment regular salaries, and that is for the salary action was not included in their budget for this year. $9,062.50 in the adult detention corrections retirement payout for an employee. And then $50,000 to risk management other expenses, and that's additional related to the municipal court claim.
Okay. Board, you've heard the reading of item number 15 and Mary's explanation there. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Humphrey.
Aye.
Painter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other additions to the agenda, Tom?
The only consideration we have would be the Cardinal Land Conservancy request to provide a resolution of support for their project.
Is it the will of the board, or is it the will of the board that a resolution be prepared for the Cardinal Conservancy?
I would like that to occur, yes. So we'd take a brief recess to have that prepared.
Should we have that prepared, recess and for preparation?
Well, there's, no, if there-
I'd also ask that if the board would approve to table this item unless, until I get some answers, I have some questions about this project that I would like to have defined before I would like to put it into a motion of a resolution by this board.
I move that we table the item for further discussion and review as suggested by Commissioner Corcoran. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy?
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Item has been tabled. Anything else further, Tom?
No, sir.
Item number I, executive session. Board, I'm asking to move into executive session pursuant to section 121.22 G3 of the Ohio Revised Code to confer with the prosecuting attorney regarding pending or imminent litigation. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
A second?
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes, we will move to executive session. We are back from executive session. There were no decisions made. We will move on with the regular agenda. Item number J, county and staff elected official discussions. Tom, any county staff elected
Just
officials?
a quick comment. Spoke to NRAC. They are due to score and review the applications tomorrow. And then they also indicated to me that they're also going to consider whether or not to accept the resolutions of support because the application deadline was April 26th.
Okay,
So I just want to make sure the board was aware that they are meeting tomorrow.
so let's just talk about that. So
Sure.
this particular resolution that you requested for the conservancy of the property, what we're talking about there is that they're going to determine if there's another date that's going to be applicable?
Well, they're going to determine tomorrow whether or not they're going to accept those after the deadline. If they may choose to not extend the deadline but set a new deadline sometime after August. And in that case, if they establish a new deadline, then it would provide also the opportunity for other agencies to apply for funding as well. So it's not really extending just the ones that have already applied, but it would open it up for others. So I don't know what they're going to do tomorrow, but I was informed that they were going to consider that tomorrow.
So there's an NRAC meeting tomorrow, is that
That's
correct?
right, and we started late because we didn't really start on this project again. I know we talked about it a few years ago, but we didn't start on it until late, after, late January this year. So we usually start earlier and give plenty of time for inclusion by local government, but we just didn't for a variety of reasons. So the rules, and it's tricky. According to the Ohio Public Works Commission, the local Natural Resources Advisory Council, which is NRAC 10 here over the 4 counties, they've got the ability to decide what they want. According to the Public Works Commission, they don't mind if you don't have the resolution at the time of your application or scoring. What they do require is that before they will release funds, you need to have that resolution of support.
Okay.
So the local NRAC can decide to not, or to deem the project ineligible. What the larger OPWC recommends is to assign point values for that and not make projects ineligible, but to give them less of a score. So I think they're gonna revamp the program in August, and Linda Bailiff has stepped in and she's now in charge of the program. She's trying to even out all the different requirements across the different councils.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're not in a time crunch here with the meeting that's gonna go on tomorrow.
So what I can say is, we wanted to see about getting a resolution to not put the NRAC in a tight spot. They can decide not to fund it tomorrow because we do not have the resolution of support from the county. So
Okay.
that's in the realm of possibility. So to us, there's a time crunch. I mean, it's a wonderful project, and with the creek frontage and the steep slopes and how it's pointed out in the Ohio Township zoning to protect those steep slopes, I'm confident it will score well in this round. But
Okay.
And so the funding amount is a consideration as well. So if there's only so much money, so if they decide tomorrow, they look at all the applications, decide how much money we have for these projects, they could, if there's more requests than funds, then they could take some of that money and say to an applicant, hey, we can't give you all of what you're asking for, but you can take a little bit less. They can extend the deadline to allow those funds to be spent if, for example, they make this project ineligible because they didn't get a resolution of support and they want to have a new deadline in, say, September, then they can reallocate those funds, I believe, at that time.
Okay.
So, in I spoke to Linda Bailiff last Friday, and she did acknowledge the fact that the statute does say that those resolutions of support are required to be submitted with the application. And that's 16423 of the High Revised Code.
Interesting. I've asked for clarification on that before and got a different answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I'd like to see us prepare a letter of support and move forward with this today if we can, but I understand if we can't, that's okay.
We'd have to have a motion to add that item back from the table
Right.
back to the agenda, I believe.
You'd
Correct,
have-
Judy? That's
you'd
where
have
we're
to
at
move it- You'd have to move it from the table back out onto
for
the,
consideration.
And all that was on the table, first of all, we had a motion, there was no second to it. And then we had a response for a second, and we indicate that
Sorry.
response for that second was they'd like to have it tabled until they had the rest of their information received. Then Mr. Painter moved to table it, Commissioner Corcoran seconded it, and it was unanimous to table. Table the issue, not necessarily, we had a motion. It was in and as it related to the disposition of a request for letter of support in and as it relates to the New Richmond Nature Preserve project.
I'd like to make a motion that we take it off the table and consider it today.
Let me find a spot to put that.
a motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Apparently not.
Motion will stay table.
May I ask a question at this point? Is it possible for you, when you go to your meeting, to say that pending further questioning, that you could bring it, that we would bring it back on the table, that not just saying no or no?
That wouldn't be for him to decide or to relate to that.
Okay.
Council, because that's a decision that the board makes on whether or not to table an issue. But as far as
No,
asking any questions or getting questions
Yeah.
answered,
Yeah, that's what I
whatever
meant.
questions that you have, we could try to get those answered for you in
All
the
right.
interim.
All right,
Yeah, I'm happy to answer whatever.
all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank
right.
you, Tom.
I'll close item J and move to item K for member comments. Any further member comments here at the board? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved?
A second?
It's been moved and second. Roll call, Judy?
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Painter?
Yes. We are adjourned.
Thank you.